Well, within hours of making that border announcement, Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk wasted no time calling on the Prime Minister to extend support for the state's struggling tourism sector. We're joined now by Minister for Home Affairs, Peter Dutton in Brisbane, and Deputy Opposition Leader Richard Marles from Adelaide. Nice to talk to you both.
Morning, Ali.
Good to talk to you, Ali.
So, Peter, are you going to bail her out?
Well, obviously we don't take economic advice from the Queensland Premier. I think the Prime Minister's demonstrated, Ali, right through this, that we've been able to make the right decisions, both in terms of job seeker, job keeper, but many other payments beyond that to support those on fixed incomes, people who are on pensions. We've provided significant assistance to businesses, and JobKeeper is coming to an end. But the government's been very clear that if we need to provide further assistance, we'll look at that. And you know, everybody feels for people, particularly in the tourism, aviation sectors, but other sectors as well. And it is made harder, as we just saw in that interview, where these snap decisions are made to close borders, bookings are cancelled, restaurants have ordered food, they've employed staff, they've got bookings, but they need to close that night with no warning at all. So we just need to get that balance right. And as was pointed out there needs to be consistency by the premiers around what the definition of the hotspot is, so that there is an ability to plan, particularly for businesses, because otherwise people are out of jobs.
What did you think when you heard her request yesterday?
Well, I thought there was some politics in it, and you know, she's in politics, as Richard and I are, so you expect a level of that. But I thought, you know, the gentleman in the previous interview summed it up well. That yes, the health aspects have been managed well. We took the right decision as a country to close the border first with China and then the rest of the world 12 months ago, and that put us in a very strong position. We obviously had managed the budget well in the lead up to COVID, so we've got capacity to provide support, not just to businesses, but to the Australian community as well, to see us through this. But we are getting lots of stories now from businesses who can't find staff because they're at home on JobKeeper. So we've got the balance right so far as a federal government, and we'll continue to do that, to listen to the concerns, but to get the balance right. And that's exactly what we're seeking to do in this budget that's coming up in May.
Well, I hope what we're hearing from that is that there will be support for those, the tourism industry, not just tourism, aviation. They've got months and months of pain ahead of them. Richard, is it fair for Anna to ask for help? The argument has been she shut the borders. Why should the federal government have to bail her out?
Well, I think it's absolutely reasonable for Anastasia Palaszczuk to be making that point. I mean, if you think about certain sectors, and you just mentioned them, tourism, aviation, I mean, they're not back to normal. And the government's got to be really careful about the way in which it transitions out of JobKeeper. And if it does it at a rate which doesn't match up with what's actually going on out there, well, then we're going to see massive job losses. I mean, until we've got the international border open, a place like Queensland, which is heavily reliant on tourism, is going to do it tough. So I completely understand why Anastasia Palaszczuk would be making that point, given how important tourism is for her state. But I'd make the other point in relation to borders. I mean, it's fine for Peter to make those points about states and the way in which they're acting. The problem here is the federal government has completely abrogated its responsibility here. I mean, it has vacated the field. I don't understand why Scott Morrison and the federal government aren't in these decisions, and they've left all of this up to the states.
I think the issue here is I think they've tried to be part of it, but it's a state issue. They control the borders and they're doing what they want when it comes to borders.
Can I just say, Ali, that I mean, there's an assumption about all of that. The federal government from day one took itself out of the whole question of our internal borders. I don't think we can say right now that the question of our nation's internal borders are solely a state issue. I mean, that's a big call to make about where Australia's at. The issue here is that from day one, Scott Morrison took himself out of the field. And so we've really got, in terms of our federation now, one of the weakest national governments we have seen. And that's why we've got the chaos that's played out over the last year.